Welcome back to NBC News Channel. Today, we will learn about the issue of obsession and the terrifying shadows of the past that refuse to stay buried. We are diving deep into the fictional yet chillingly realistic world of Salem, where Days of Our Lives is orchestrating one of its most suspenseful returns in over a decade. For weeks, the air in Salem has been thick with paranoia. Stephanie Johnson, a character known for her resilience, has been slowly unraveling under the gaze of an unseen predator. Until recently, all eyes but the characters and the audience were fixed on Jeremy as the likely culprit behind the black gloves and the poisoned soda. But the truth is far more sinister and rooted deeply in history. The real nightmare wears a familiar face, one that hasn't been seen in 16 years. Owen Kent is back, and his return marks the beginning of a psychological thriller that promises to push Stephanie to her breaking point. The Shadow returns, a chronicle of recent terror. To understand the gravity of Owen Kent's return, we must first look at the masterclass in terror he has been conducting from the shadows. This hasn't been a clumsy return, it has been a surgical strike on Stephanie's sense of safety. Viewers have watched with bated breath as a figure clad in black leather gloves moved through the periphery of Stephanie's life, the ghost haunting her every step. The incident with the poisoned soda was the first major escalation. It was a cold, calculated move intended for Alex, a warning shot that missed its mark only by chance. When Stephanie traveled for her book tour, hoping to escape the suffocating atmosphere of Salem, the terror followed her. The stalking at the hotel was intimate and violating, proving that this stalker knows her schedule, her habits, and her vulnerabilities. This isn't just a random attacker, this is someone who feels entitled to her existence. The audience, led to believe Jeremy was the man behind the mask due to the convenient timing of his own erratic behavior, is about to receive a shock. The man Steve Johnson pulls the hood off of in the coming episodes is not the red herring we've been fed. It is Owen Kent, a ghost from 2009, whose obsession has likely fermented into something far more dangerous during his years on the run. Decoding the monster. Who is Owen Kent? For newer viewers, Owen Kent might just be a name, but for longtime fans, he represents a specific brand of trauma. To truly understand the threat Stephanie faces, we must decode the psychology of the man who first shattered her world over a decade ago. In 2009, Owen was introduced not as a monster, but as a pawn. He was a gardener for the Kyriakis family, a seemingly invisible young man who tended to the roses while secretly feeding information to the rival DiMera clan. He was a hired hand, a tool used in the endless war between Stefano DiMera and Victor Kyriakis. But beneath his subservient exterior lay a dormant obsession. When E.J. DiMera ordered him to kidnap Stephanie Johnson, it wasn't just a job for Owen, it was the fulfillment of a dark fantasy. Owen didn't just lock Stephanie in a basement. He took her to his father's mortuary, a detail that adds a layer of macabre horror to his character profile. He kept her captive in a morgue drawer, surrounded by the dead, forcing her to rely on him for every breath of fresh air. It was a psychological torture designed to break her will and make him her only savior. He didn't want ransom. He wanted her love. He wanted them to run away together, delusional in his belief that she could ever reciprocate his twisted affection. That experience left Stephanie traumatized, altering the course of her life and her relationships. When Owen was finally caught, thanks to the combined efforts of Melanie Jonas, Philip Kyriakis, and Brady Black, it seemed the nightmare was over. But the system failed. The transport van taking Owen to prison was hijacked, and in the chaos, Owen vanished into the ether. He didn't die. He didn't go to jail. He simply disappeared, leaving a lingering question mark that has finally been answered. The missing years, a psychological evolution. What has Owen Kent been doing for the last 16 years? This is where the story becomes truly terrifying. A man like Owen doesn't just forget. Obsession is not a phase, it is a pathology. We can speculate that Owen spent these years in exile, perhaps moving from town to town, working odd jobs that allowed him to remain invisibly skilled he honed as a gardener. But like the young, frantic man of 2009, the Owen returning to Salem is likely older, colder, and more methodical. He has had nearly 2 decades to replay his mistakes. He likely analyzed why he failed the first time. He was too impulsive, too reliant on the DiMeras. This new Owen is independent. He isn't working for a crime family. He is working for himself. The sophistication of his stalking and traceable poisons, the ability to bypass security, the patience to watch and wait suggests he has evolved. He has likely been watching Stephanie for years, tracking her relationships, her career, and waiting for the perfect moment to strike when she was most vulnerable. He has returned not just to kidnap her, but to claim what he believes was stolen from him. Prediction: the new nightmare. As we look ahead to the unfolding storyline, the stakes are higher than ever. The promo teases a confrontation, but knowing Owen's history, this is likely just the opening move of his endgame. The narrative suggests that Owen is no longer interested in simply running away. He wants to punish those who stood in his way, starting with Alex and ending with Steve Johnson. The Jeremy red herring was likely a convenient cover Owen utilized, perhaps even framing the other man intentionally to distract Steve and the police. We predict a storyline where Owen attempts to recreate the trauma of the past to reset Stephanie. He may try to take her back to a setting that mimics the isolation of the morgue, a place where time stops, and she is forced to focus solely on him. This time, however, he won't make the mistake of hesitating. The kidnapping teased in the winter promo will likely be successful, plunging Stephanie into a fight for her life where she must use her wits to outmaneuver a man who knows her better than she knows herself. Steve Johnson's role in this will be pivotal. For a father, there is no greater failure than the inability to protect his child from a recurring monster. Steve's capture of the hooded figure is a triumph, but it may come too late if Owen has already set his trap. The apology owed to Jeremy will be the least of anyone's concerns as the realization hits. The true monster has been in the room with them all along, waiting for the lights to go out. Conclusion: a storm descends on Salem. The return of Wes Ramsey as Owen Kent is a masterstroke of storytelling for Days of Our Lives. It mines the show's rich history to create a threat that feels earned and genuinely dangerous. This isn't a new villain introduced for shock value. This is unresolved trauma coming back to fester. As the episodes unfold, viewers should prepare for a dark, psychological ride. Owen Kent serves as a reminder that in Salem, the past is never dead. It is merely waiting in the shadows, wearing black gloves, patient and hungry for revenge. Stephanie Johnson survived him once, but the girl she was then is gone. The woman she is now must find the strength to confront the ghost of her past, or risk being consumed by it forever. Stay tuned to NBC News for more updates on this developing story. Next, December 4th episode of Days of Our Lives. Tate's visit to Johnny DiMera, a meeting that solves nothing. Tate starts his day by tracking down Johnny DiMera, the film studies professor whose class Tate is dangerously close to failing. Johnny, still new to teaching and clearly not taking his academic duties with the seriousness one might expect, listens half-heartedly as Tate pleads for guidance. Instead of offering constructive help, Johnny brushes him off with a shrug. "Oh, it's nothing," Johnny says, as though Tate's sinking academic career is a mild inconvenience. "Just focus on your other classes. I've got to run." And with that, he's gone, leaving Tate standing alone and more confused than ever. This moment becomes the emotional trigger of the episode. Tate walks away with panic building inside him, certain that he's about to spiral into another academic disaster. Worse, he's terrified Holly will find out. His relationship with her feels fragile enough, and he fears disappointing her more than disappointing his professors. But Salem is a town where failure often means very little, especially for someone with Tate's background. And that brings us to the first major reason why he truly doesn't need to worry money. Reason 1. Tate's family wealth has already rescued him before. The episode cleverly reminds viewers of Tate's academic past. He has failed before. He has been expelled before. And yet, every time, the consequences evaporated the moment his parents stepped in with a generous donation. The script makes this clear by revisiting Tate's earlier school issues. After his first academic collapse, Brady and Teresa simply wrote a check, and suddenly, Tate's problems vanished. Doors opened where they had been shut. Rules bent. Administrators smiled. And somehow, Tate ended up in a new academic environment with a clean slate. This raises a simple but powerful question. Why does Tate think college is any different? Salem University is famously flexible with its wealthy students. If Brady, who manages one of the most powerful families in Salem, decided to sponsor a new scholarship, a new building, or even a new student wellness initiative, Tate would almost certainly benefit. In fact, The episode hints that Tate could easily end up as one of the top-performing students in his department with just one strategic donation from his father. Money, as the episode suggests, has a way of smoothing problems, rewriting academic histories, and bending the rules in ways that ordinary students can only dream of. Reason 2: Tate doesn't even need a degree in Salem. The second major reason Tate doesn't need to panic is rooted in the culture of Salem itself. This town has a long, storied history of placing people in high-ranking positions regardless of whether they have formal education, experience, or training. Titan Industries, for example, has promoted people into executive roles based on their name, their connections, or their proximity to the Demare or Kyriakis families. Black Patch hires people based on family legacy rather than skill. Even ISA, once a prestigious agency, has been known to recruit people whose only qualification was being adjacent to drama. So when we look at Tate young, wealthy, connected, and carrying the black family name, it becomes hilariously clear that he could walk into a high-level job tomorrow if he wanted to. Degree or no degree, Salem has a way of bending to people from families like his. The episode reinforces this idea through subtle humor. It mocks the notion that Tate needs to worry about his future when people like Theo Carver once found themselves leading major corporations despite little real-world expertise. Salem runs on legacy, not credentials. Tate's future, academically or professionally, is far more secure than he realizes. Reason 3: Holly doesn't care about grades. She never has. The third and perhaps most surprising reassurance comes from Tate's relationship with Holly. Tate fears that if she learns about his academic troubles, she'll see him differently. But the show reminds us of something important. Holly has never based her romantic interest on intelligence, ambition, or even basic competence. The episode references Dead 3, a spectacular failure of a human being, lazy, dishonest, manipulative, and incompetent in nearly every category. And yet Holly was deeply infatuated with him. So why is Tate afraid? If Holly could love Doug 3, she can certainly handle the idea of Tate failing a class or two. Her affection has never been tied to academic achievement or career prospects. She values emotional connection, loyalty, and excitement, not grade point averages. This realization adds a warm, human touch to the story. Tate's anxiety is real, but it's rooted in insecurity, not reality. Holly has already proven that she chooses partners based on her heart, not their transcripts. A larger look at Tate's anxiety. When we step back, Tate's panic becomes more understandable. He's a young man trying to prove himself. He wants Holly to see him as capable. He wants Brady to be proud. He wants to succeed on his own merits. His fear doesn't come from consequence, it comes from pride. But in Salem, where family connections outweigh academic performance, Tate's fears simply don't align with the world he lives in.